Mother Nature was calling. I will make sure to upload this as a two-parter to the YouTube because it's quicker to just upload things from Twitch directly to the YouTube instead of having to manually edit. And I'm just chucking the entire videos anyway. Okay, so with this, we finished doing the full save system for our video settings and our save settings. So it's basically a file with 5 sets of lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for all of our options. We'll add more if we need later on. But for now, let's move on to the next part. And that means it's going back to the game scene. Inside the game scene, we will add another little tab that we're missing, and that's just going to be a testing script, which I'll leave for the final project because I believe it's quite useful for debugging and prototyping of any project that you'll do. So this is going to be a simple script called the FPS. What should we call it? FPS display. So this will essentially just display the FPS on screen with a text. So what I'll have here is I'll just have 2 sets of fields. I'll make them public because this is not that important. So text FPS text, and we'll have public float, actually private float delta time like so. And all we have to have is an update, and we'll have delta time plus equals time unscaled, delta time minus, and delta time. And then we'll do time 0.1f like so. And then we'll have float FPS is equal to 1.0f divided by delta time. And finally, our FPS text.text is equal to FPS plus math f dot seal FPS to string like so. And with this, we have a very simple FPS display. So displays a current FPS in a text. Text field that displays the FPS. The float used for calculating the FPS. There we go. Calculate the FPS of the project. Displays it in a text. Like so. Now, all we really need for this is go into our UI, create a text. I'm just going to place it in the top corner as that's one of the areas of the screen that is not currently obstructed by anything. Call it FPS. Make it as dark as we possibly can. Make it as big as we possibly can. And that's good enough. So let's just do FPS 60. Text FPS display. Just gonna cap it because it's not part of everything normal. And now finally, let's drag it in here at the very bottom, drag in our little text component and see how that's gonna work. So there you go, our game is running at nice FPS. Let's see how actual gameplay. There we go. As you see, every time we click, we actually get a reduction. Spawning also reduces, and so does firing. So there's definitely some performance areas in which we can work on improving the game. I'll definitely look into them later. By the way you can check for performance is using Profiler. So if we just pause it real quick and click here, we can see exactly what causes the most. So we have player update time, wait for target FPS. So all of these are, there you go. It tells you where everything is. You can select which is physics, which is scripts, animations. So there's a lot of options to fiddle with here when working on optimization. And that's something I'll definitely work on towards the end of the project. Now with this, let's actually move on to do everything that I actually wanted to do for today, and that's adding the remaining towers and adding audio into the game. So like before, if we go back to the main menu, we have this class here. Well, this class has to be a prefab and it has to exist in every scene that uses sound, resolution, etc., which means basically everywhere. And if we drag it, where are we? Prefabs, let's just drag it here. And go back to our game scene, go into prefabs, drag this onto our scene. And with this being on the scene, we can now grab any sound data from here. Of course, we need something that will 100%. Yeah, there you go. With this. So let's just say we did actually have some values here that loaded from the previous scene, and they will load because they'll pass over from the main menu. So we don't need to reload again in this scene. So I set some values here that I'll leave for now. And what I'll do now is I'll go into our tower script. And we want our tower to have some form of an audio. So we will add a serializable field, which is going to be a private audio source. Call it source. And then every time we fire a shot, where are we? Shooting. So here we check the animations, etc. Actually, animation should. Nope, it's fine. So here, before we create the bullet, we'll just do if source is not null, and then we will play our. We will do private void play button sound like so, and this will just play our audio clip. Play button sound like so. And what this will do is it will essentially just do source.clip is equal to sound. We also need our we actually need a private clip. Is it audio clip? Audio clip. Let's call it sound clip. Here we go. Sound clip like so. And then source.volume is equal to our save data manager.instance. And since this is a sound, we'll grab the sound and then we'll just do source.play like so. And with this, we will play a sound based on our sound value. One thing that we can actually do here is if save data manager.instance.sound is higher than master. Actually, let's just leave it. I will not use the master. It's just in the settings, but the master setting will not do anything for now. Okay, so this will play our sound, and we essentially have to do this for everything that will emit some kind of a sound, which for this case is just the towers, which means we've done this section entirely. And then, okay, what else do we have now? So before we move on to creating the remaining towers, I'll fix one error that we have with the tax tower. So currently the X tower, once it starts firing, it will, let's just play a few of them so we actually wipe out this wave. The animation will keep playing even though we no longer have a target. So that's something that is wrong. So we'll change that. Firstly, let's see, is there a class for the X tower? No, there isn't. Okay, that's fine. That's great. That means that all we have to do is copy this, and then where are we? If else. So if our target is actually null, we just set that to enable.false, like so. And let's see if this is going to fix the problem. So let's play 1, 2, 3, 4 towers. There we go. And we no longer fire, although the biggest problem is that they don't really reset to their default animation, and the position of the towers doesn't reset either. But that being said, there is not really a problem with that, or is there? Well, what do we have? I know there is a way to reset it, but I actually don't know it off the top of my head. Let's leave it for now. And let's move on to the remaining towers. We have 40 minutes left. I wasted a lot of time on nothing, basically. So the damage booster tower can stay as it is. What's this? The chain tower is the tower that really needs to be... Actually, let's forget about the chain tower. It's, or no, I'll think about it. Let's do the radio signal tower and the damage boosting tower first. So what are we going to do with this tower is now quickly set its canvas selection. Let's open the prefab. And we want to remove any canvas selection from it. We want to remove the muzzle. And if we click on it, we want to remove this. This and this. And then we want to add in the highlight selection. Go into materials, attach the good highlight, bad highlight. I'm actually just going to select every part of this and drag the color in. Wait, do all of them have? Yeah, they do. And now let's drag in every part that has a material. Could just drag it together, but whatever. There we go. And that's our damage booster tower complete. Oh, so I did have that. Oh, I just never applied. Okay. Now with this done, we can code in this tower. Well, actually, have we done it for the range? Yes, we did. So chain tower is the only non-functional tower as of yet. So let's go into our tower script and click on the range tower first. So what is the difference between the range tower and the damage boosting tower as opposed to the normal tower script. And where do we actually reference the tower script? Because they're essentially two different, they don't share almost any type of features from our actual tower class. So attaching a tower class almost seems pointless. To our towers, we can actually make a brand new class which will handle boosting towers in their overall. But I think the problem is that we do use the tower class somewhere in the code. I just need to figure out where, and that will give us some errors. So let's check out the player interaction class. So yeah, so player interaction uses tower. So I presume there's more than just the player interaction. So what we will do is we will modify the tower script so we can actually use the buffing towers as well. Now, what does aiming do? So a boost tower will not need either aiming or shooting. It will actually never have a target. So let's create a new class that inherits from the tower. So in scripts, no, let's go into towers and let's create a signal tower. There we go. Remove the tower, attach the signal tower in, and open the signal tower. And whoa, leave that. Tower like so. Let's remove these guys. Let's nullify all of these problems. Okay, what else do we have? So now, what are the changes that we need to have? So our signal tower will check for any towers within its range. So what we really need is our own version of update, and we will need to have access to, yeah. So let's just do this as a public virtual void like so. Or actually, let's not. So later on, I will not use update at all. So let's just do update. Now, the reason why I'm only calling update is because I am not using any of these. I don't need the other member to run any of that code anyway. So we can have our own update here instead. That's not related to the parent. So in update, we will have to call a function, which is very similar to our, well, basically we need the self code. But instead of using the enemy layer, so we'll have private void extend the range of allies. So what this will do is it will draw up a bunch of targets in our range and our enemy layer, but the enemy layer is not going to be an enemy layer, it's going to be an ally layer. And for everyone inside, we will call a function which will increase their range by the damage of this tower. So the damage will be the boosting factor of the tower, if you can call it so. So what's going to happen here is we need to have a way to take in a buff. And that's going to be Where are we? So let's actually go into our enemy health. Now in enemy health, we had this cool, it's enemy health. No, we had this cool thing called the buffs, applying buffs. There we go. So what an applying buff does, it takes a type of the buff, the duration and the damage, which is perfect because all we have to do is range boost. Even though it's called a debuff, it will work both ways. So it's going to be a range buff and it's going to be a damage boost, right? And the way enemy deals with the debuffs is with a little function called the debuff counter. So we will take that, but we will modify that greatly. So at the bottom of the code, let's play our little debuff. So we need to store our buffs same way the enemies do. So we're going to have a list that a tower has of the debuffs. Applied debuffs buffs. Oh, the reason why this is wrong because I don't have collections.generic because I haven't been using a list here yet. But now this is fixed. And if we go to the bottom, applied buffs, is it? Applied buffs, debuffs. Oh my god, I spelled it wrong anyway, whatever. Applied. And then instead of take damage, we will run what it actually has to do. So that will, of course, then remove from the duration. We will not run take damage. We will actually run whatever has to be run based on our debuff. So apply debuffs dot I dot type of debuff. So if it's a range buff, we will, and then else if it's the other buff dot damage buff, then our damage, well, damage is going to be equal to damage plus apply debuffs I dot damage, debuff damage. The reason why we use plus, not plus equals, is because then the damage would scale indefinitely, and that's not something we want. So range, range, and we will keep that as the debuff damage because that will be what we'll use when applying these. There we go. And with this, we have a debuff system that works the exact same way as the one for enemies did. And all we have to do is call it using the repeating functions. Where are we? So we'll just do invoke in on enabled, and we will go into our, and then we will on disable on invoke the function like so. And with this, we have our buffs either running or not running. Of course, what we also have to do now is reset our damage after the debuffs disappear. So what we'll do is If the duration's at 0, we will, before we remove the debuff, we will check what they are and we will set our range. It's actually wrong range. So the reason why this is wrong is because the range will keep adding. So what we actually have to do is reference to our original range stat from the tower stats. So tower stats dot, and we'll have our level. Where is the level? The tower tier, and that's going to be our level. What is it called? Tier. Current tower tier dot range. So what here we'll do is we'll just make it equal to our current tower tier damage, like so. And of course in here we replace that with that. And with this we have a fully working system that buffs and debuffs our, well, towers and our enemies. So if we close this, we go back to our signal tower. We will actually just do this properly, and I'll go into on enable and on disable. So what's going to happen is we will do invoke repeating. So it's basically this, and every private void repeat rate is going to be equal to 1. So how often we repeat it? We repeat it once every second. And we run it straight away, and then of course we cancel invoke when we finish. And this is the function we want to call. And what this does is it, so this is allies, and then what we'll do is for each collider ally in allies, we will apply the debuff to every single one of them. So let's just open the tower script. And what we need to do is add a debuff. So what that's going to be is going to be public void add debuff, add buff. A buff will, of course, that means we need to store a debuff of some sort. So we will have a private applying debuff a buff type to new and on enable we'll set this up. So buff type is equal to new applying debuff, and then buff type dot debuff damage is going to equal to tower stats dot damage. No, dot current tier tower dot stats dot damage. Hello? Oh, that's right. Tier, current, and damage. We will do the exact same thing for our current tower tier range. That's going to be range is going to be our duration. No. So range is going to be kept as range for this tower to call range. Duration is going to be a 1. Let's just keep it as 1. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, there is. Buff type dot type of buff is going to be equal to range boosting, like so. Single equals. There we go. And now for each ally dot get component tower dot apply add buff, and we just pass through our buff type, like so. And then we are applying a new buff, like so. And all we have to do here is apply debuffs dot add and then new buff, like so. Actually, we should, I think, first check if it already doesn't contain one. So let's go into our enemy health. And let's just have a look how we did it there. Not to make any... Yeah. So all we did was just check if it doesn't already exist. So if applied contains new buff, then we can add it to our list, like so. And with this, our range tower should work properly. Now let's do some setups here. So our enemy layer is going to be our tower layer, which we don't have yet. So let's add a new layer and called tower. And for every single tower that we have to set it to our tower layer. Tower stats, so that's going to be the range boost. Rotator we don't need, target we don't need, bullet pool we don't need, muzzle we don't need. Doesn't need to use any animations. Well, it doesn't need the smoke animation, and then everything else is okay. Like so. Yeah, I know that was an error. Now, with this, I just need to set up the tower here, but I'm running out of my daily dose of time. So that will be postponed for later, but this is essentially what has to be done for both of these towers, and nothing else. But yeah, that's it. We are getting very close to the end. Besides these towers and few bugs here and there, I don't see anything else that has to be added towards this project. So I'll start with balancing the project out. For the extra enemies, we will simply just make a new prefab of the currently existing enemies with these visuals from the list here. I will not bother showing this process because this is a simple case of replacing this specific capsule with a different one, or changing the color, and of course replacing the basic trooper with a different one. But that's it for today. Hopefully by the end of Saturday this will be completed and we can choose new themes for the upcoming projects. Thanks for the watch.